$2.4 million. For the house that held every memory of my childhood, and my sister sold it without even telling me. The words hung in the air like a slap to the face. I gripped my coffee mug so tightly my knuckles turned white. The smooth ceramic felt dangerously close to shattering under the pressure of my grip. Across the phone line, my sister Madison let out a self-satisfied chuckle, the kind that always made me want to strangle her. "Relax, Liv. You never used it, and as executor of Grandma's estate, I had every right to sell it." My pulse pounded in my ears. Grandma Margaret's beach house, the heart of every childhood summer, the place where we built our most cherished memories, sold, without my knowledge, without my consent. "You did what?" I barely recognized my own voice. It was lower, tight, full of rage bubbling under the surface. "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she sighed, as if I were overreacting to someone stealing my inheritance. "Face it, Liv. You're too busy being a big-shot lawyer in New York. You haven't set foot in that house in years." I squeezed my eyes shut, inhaling deeply through my nose. That house was left to both of us. "That house was left to both of us," I snapped. "Actually," she interrupted, her tone smug, "I had full authority. The paperwork is final. The new owners take possession next week." I felt sick. Madison was the executor, yes, but Grandma left the house to both of us. She couldn't legally sell it without my consent. Could she? Then she said something that made my stomach turn. "I think I'll use my share to buy a yacht. Ethan's always wanted one." Ethan. Her husband. The gold-digging, smooth-talking snake. Now it made sense. I could picture them now, sipping overpriced wine in their oversized mansion, laughing about how they stole my inheritance right out from under me. I forced myself to take a breath, years of courtroom training kicking in. "This isn't legal, Madison. I never signed anything." She laughed, sharp and dismissive. "Check the deed, sis. As executor, I had full authority. Maybe if you actually showed up to an estate meeting, you'd know that." I clenched my teeth. Guilt, her favorite weapon. After Grandma passed, Madison played the role of the devoted granddaughter, while I buried myself in work to cope with the loss. I should have seen this coming. "I'll fight this," I warned. She snorted. "With what? Your fancy law degree? Face it, Liv. You lost. I won. The money's already transferred. It's done." The call ended with a sharp click, leaving me standing in my kitchen, shaking with rage. I swallowed the lump in my throat. My phone buzzed again, a text from Madison. "Be out by Friday. New owners want the place cleared. Don't worry. I already took anything valuable." My breath caught in my chest. Something clicked in my mind. The study. Grandma's study. The one room she always kept locked. The one she made me promise to check after she was gone. I'd been too buried in work to do it. A heavy knot formed in my stomach. What had Madison taken? What had she missed? My fingers trembled as I dialed the only person who might help. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Thomas Reynolds." "Thomas, it's Olivia," I said, my throat dry. "Madison sold the beach house." A long pause. Then, in a measured voice, he said, "I was expecting your call." I barely slept that night. Instead, I pored over old estate documents, searching for anything that could prove Madison had overstepped her legal bounds. But no matter how many times I flipped through them, there was nothing concrete that I could use to stop the sale. By morning, I had a one-way ticket to Newport, Rhode Island, and a meeting scheduled with Thomas at noon. The train ride felt like an eternity. Through the window, the landscapes blurred, New York's city skyline melting into rolling countryside, until finally the familiar coastal air of Newport greeted me. Thomas was already waiting at the station when I arrived. "You look just like her," he said as I stepped onto the platform. I blinked. "What?" "Margaret." His eyes softened. "She'd be proud of you." A sharp pang hit my chest. "Madison wouldn't agree," I muttered, shifting my suitcase onto my shoulder. Thomas smirked. "Madison sees what she wants to see. Your grandmother understood ambition. She built her empire from nothing after all. But we're not here to discuss Madison's opinions. We're here to discuss your grandmother's foresight." A strange unease settled over me. "Foresight?" I echoed. We entered his law office. the scent of leather-bound books and aged mahogany filling the air. Behind closed doors, he got straight to the point. "That key you wear." He gestured to the delicate silver key hanging around my neck. "Have you ever tried using it?" My fingers instinctively brushed against it. "No," I admitted. "Grandma said I'd know when the time was right." Thomas nodded. "That time is now." He slid a thick file toward me. My stomach twisted. "The deed Madison used to sell the property, it's not the final version." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 2 weeks before she passed," he said carefully, "your grandmother filed an amended deed, one with very specific conditions about sale and ownership." A cold rush spread through my veins. Conditions Madison unknowingly violated? Thomas nodded. "If you want the house back, Olivia, you might already have the legal right to reclaim it." I exhaled slowly, my pulse hammering in my ears. She knew. Grandma always knew. Thomas checked his watch. "Madison's at a charity luncheon. If you want to check that safe, now's the time." I swallowed hard. This was it. Everything. Every stolen childhood memory, every piece of our family's legacy, came down to what was inside that safe. And I was finally going to open it. The drive to the beach house felt like muscle memory, even though I hadn't been here in years. The closer I got, the more the familiar sights of Newport, Rhode Island tugged at something deep inside me. The weathered coastal homes, the scent of salt in the air, the sound of gulls overhead, it was like stepping back into my childhood. Only this time, it wasn't nostalgia that gripped me. It was anger, determination, and the undeniable weight of unfinished business. Thomas had offered to come with me, but I refused. "This is something I need to do alone," I had told him, and I meant it. Because no matter what I found inside Grandma's study, I had a feeling it would change everything. The beach house. The gravel crunches beneath my tires as I pull into the long driveway. The house stands before me, as stately and timeless as ever, but there's something different about it now. It no longer feels like home. It feels like a crime scene. Madison had tried to erase me from this place. She had sold it like it was nothing, but I wasn't nothing, and neither was Grandma's legacy. I step out of the car, inhaling deeply as the salty ocean breeze rushes past me. The wraparound porch, where Grandma used to sit and drink her morning tea, creaks beneath my boots as I make my way to the front door. I still have my own key, not that Madison ever thought to change the locks. The second I step inside, I'm hit with the scent of old books and cedarwood. Everything looks untouched. Madison didn't care for the study. She cared about jewelry, designer bags, Grandma's expensive china set. But Grandma's books, the business files, the hidden safes, those weren't her concerns, but they were mine. The study. The room was exactly how Grandma left it. Dark mahogany shelves lined the walls, filled with dusty first-edition books. The old desk, still perfectly polished, sat in the center of the room like an altar of power. And there it was, the safe. For as long as I could remember, Grandma had always kept it locked. "One day, you'll understand why," she used to say. I had never questioned her. Until now. My fingers trembled as I reached for the silver key around my neck. I had worn it since her funeral, never knowing why she insisted I keep it. I slide it into the keyhole. It fits perfectly. With a click, the door swings open, and inside, I find everything. The truth unfolds. There's a single thick envelope, sealed with Grandma's wax insignia. My name is written on the front in her elegant handwriting. My heart hammers as I break the seal. Inside, I find a handwritten letter from Grandma. Legal documents. An amended deed. I begin reading. For Olivia, when Madison shows her true colors. I am sorry it has come to this, my dear, but some lessons must be learned the hard way. I know Madison better than she knows herself. I know she will let her greed consume her, and I know she will betray you. That is why I prepared for this. 2 weeks before my passing, I filed a final amendment to the estate, one that Madison does not know exists. The beach house cannot be sold unless both of you agree. If one attempts to sell it without the other's consent, full ownership transfers immediately and irrevocably to the wronged party. I stop breathing. The words blur in front of me. I scan the legal documents, hands shaking. It's real. It's legal. Madison doesn't own the house anymore. I do. I grab my phone and dial Thomas's number. He answers on the second ring. "Did you find it?" he asks. I swallow hard. "Yes." "Are you ready for the next step?" I grip the documents, my voice steady. "Call Madison and her lawyer. Emergency meeting. Your office. Now." A long pause. "And the consequences?" Thomas asks. I think of Madison's smug voice, of Ethan's greed, of how they had tried to erase me from this house, from this family. I let out a slow breath. Oh, she's about to learn Grandma's last lesson about thinking ahead. The conference room inside Thomas Reynolds' law office felt icy cold, despite the warm sunlight filtering through the windows. I sat at one end of the polished mahogany table, the legal documents spread out before me like a deck of carefully played cards. This was it. Everything was set in motion. Madison thought she won. She thought she could erase me, steal my inheritance, and walk away untouched. But she had no idea what was coming. The door swung open. Madison swept in first, her expensive heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She was dressed like she had just stepped out of a lifestyle magazine, a pristine cream-colored suit hugging her frame, her diamond earrings flashing as she moved. Behind her, Ethan followed like a shadow, his usual smug expression firmly in place. And then, there was her lawyer. He looked young, inexperienced, and already nervous. Good. That meant he wasn't ready for what was about to happen. "This better be important, Liv." Madison sighed dramatically as she dropped her Hermes bag onto the table with a careless thud. I was in the middle of planning the yacht club summer gala. I met her gaze evenly. "Oh, it's important," she rolled her eyes. "Then let's get this over with. I have things to do." "You might want to sit down," Thomas advised from his seat beside me. "I'll stand," Madison huffed, crossing her arms. "Just say whatever dramatic thing you need to say so I can get back to my life." Thomas sighed, leaning forward. "Madison, I strongly advise you to sit." Something in his tone made her hesitate. For a moment, there was a flicker of something in her expression. Unease. Then, with a huff, she sank into a chair. Ethan hovered behind her, his hands resting a little too tightly on her shoulders. "Let's talk about the beach house sale," I said, sliding a document across the table. Madison exhaled sharply. "Oh my God, Olivia, we've been through this. As executor, I cut in, my voice razor sharp. You had a duty to follow Grandma's wishes to the letter, all of them." Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably, already fumbling with his papers. All relevant documents were reviewed and— "No," Thomas said, cutting him off sharply. "Not all of them." He opened his copy of the deed and placed it before Madison. Margaret Carter filed an amended deed 2 weeks before her death, a deed with very specific conditions. Madison stiffened. Her fingers twitched against the fabric of her expensive designer suit. "What conditions?" she asked, her voice losing its edge for the first time. I lifted the final document, its official seal glistening in the light. The beach house could only be sold with unanimous agreement from both heirs, you and me. Any unauthorized sale would trigger what Grandma called the character clause. Ethan's grip on Madison's shoulders tightened visibly. "The what?" Thomas turned the page, his expression calm but unreadable. In the event that one granddaughter attempted to sell without the other's consent, full ownership would immediately and irrevocably transfer to the wronged party. Silence. Madison's manicured nails dug into the table. "That's impossible. I had the deed. I had authority." "You had a preliminary deed," I said smoothly. "Grandma filed this amendment because she knew you too well." Her gaze snapped to her lawyer. "She can't do that. Can she?" The young man scanned the document, his face draining of color. "It appears to be legally binding." Ethan's smirk vanished. For the first time since walking into this room, he looked genuinely unsettled. "But I already sold it." Madison whispered, her voice breaking for the first time. "The money's been transferred. The papers are signed." Thomas placed another document before her. "The sale is void. The amended deed takes precedence. The moment you attempted the unauthorized sale, the beach house became Olivia's." A heavy silence swallowed the room. Madison sat there, motionless, as if the weight of her own greed had finally caught up to her. Then Ethan exploded. "This is bullshit," he spat, slamming a fist on the table. "You can't just take everything away from us." I arched an eyebrow. "Correction," I said smoothly. "I'm taking back what was never yours to begin with." Madison shook her head slowly, her expression a mix of shock and devastation. "No," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "No, this isn't happening." I leaned forward. "Oh, it gets worse." I slid forward the final document from Grandma's safe. "Grandma didn't just plan for the beach house," I said. "She planned for everything." Madison's fingers clenched into fists. Ethan leaned in, his jaw tight. "What does that mean?" he demanded. Thomas placed the final file on the table. "Margaret Carter didn't just safeguard the house," he explained smoothly. "She safeguarded the entire estate." Madison's face drained of color. "What?" she breathed. I folded my arms. "The estate funds, Madison. The ones you've been using for years to fund your lifestyle. The ones you've siphoned for Ethan's bad business deals. The ones that were supposed to be handled responsibly." Her lips parted, stunned. Ethan shifted uncomfortably beside her. Thomas continued, his voice smooth. "Any unauthorized sale or financial mismanagement results in immediate removal of the executor and transfer of control to the other heir." I tilted my head, watching the moment realization fully sank in. "That means, dear sister," I said, "you're not just losing the house. You're losing everything." Madison's breath hitched. Ethan's face twisted with rage. Her lawyer frantically flipped through his papers, looking for some kind of loophole. There wasn't one. Grandma had made sure of that. The trap was airtight. Madison stood up so suddenly her chair scraped across the floor. "You can't do this to me," she hissed. "I handled everything while you were off playing lawyer in New York." "You tried to steal from me," I corrected. "You ignored Grandma's wishes and tried to sell our family home for a yacht." Ethan clenched his jaw. "What happens now?" he muttered. I gathered the documents and stood to my full height. "Now," I said, my voice calm, "Madison hands over all executorship duties. The sale is undone. I'll handle reimbursing the buyers. And you both vacate Grandma's estate house within 30 days. Madison let out a strangled gasp. "That's our home." "No," I said evenly. "It was part of the estate, and you no longer control it." Silence. And just like that, the game was over. The silence in Thomas Reynolds' office was deafening. Madison sat frozen, her hands clenched into fists, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the fine leather of the conference chair. Ethan, however, was seething. I could feel his rage simmering beneath the surface, his knuckles white as he gripped the edge of the table. "This is a goddamn joke," he muttered, shaking his head. "You think you can just strip everything away from us? We had a deal." I let out a slow breath, keeping my voice steady and controlled. "You had a deal with yourselves," I corrected. "Not with me, not with Grandma, and certainly not with the law." Madison exhaled sharply, finally snapping out of her stunned silence. "This isn't fair," she hissed, her voice shaking. "I was the one who took care of everything. You never wanted any of it. You ran off to New York and abandoned us." There it was, the guilt trip. I crossed my arms. "I didn't abandon anyone, Madison. I built a life. Just because I didn't sit around playing estate manager doesn't mean you had the right to sell off Grandma's legacy behind my back. I had every right—" "No, you didn't." Her mouth snapped shut. I turned back to Thomas. "We'll need to move forward with nullifying the sale today. I want everything transferred back immediately." And Madison's lawyer, who had remained painfully silent this entire time, cleared his throat and adjusted his tie nervously. "Ms. Carter," he started, his voice wavering. "Legally speaking, the deed Olivia has is solid. There's nothing we can do to reverse it." Madison turned on him like a viper. "Then what the hell am I paying you for?" she snapped. Ethan rubbed his temples and let out a low growl. "This isn't over," he muttered, eyes burning into me. Thomas folded his hands, his expression unmoved. Actually, it is. Any legal challenge will only expose further irregularities in how the estate was managed. I highly doubt you'd want that. Madison's face drained of color, and then suddenly, I knew. I narrowed my eyes. "What else are you hiding?" She flinched. Ethan shot her a sharp look, one that screamed, "Shut up," but I already saw it. There was more, and it was bad. The fraud. By the time I reached the beach house later that afternoon, my mind was racing. Something wasn't adding up. Madison was panicked, but not just about losing the house. She was terrified. And if there was one thing I knew about my sister, it was that she never got scared. Not unless she had a very good reason to be. I barely had time to process before I heard tires crunching on gravel behind me. I turned just as Madison's white Mercedes came to a screeching stop in the driveway. She barely gave herself time to park before throwing the door open and storming toward me. "Liv, we need to talk." I crossed my arms. "Now you want to talk?" Her expression was different now. Gone was the entitled, smug confidence she always wore like armor. Instead, she looked desperate, and that terrified me more than anything. "There's something else," she blurted out, "about the estate." I stilled. "Go on," I said, keeping my voice calm. She swallowed hard, glancing back at her car like she half expected Ethan to come charging after her. She faltered. "I invested some of the estate money." My stomach dropped. "How much?" She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Madison." Her hands trembled as she finally whispered, 800,000. I felt like the air had been knocked out of my lungs. "You took nearly $1 million out of Grandma's accounts?" My voice was deadly quiet. She nodded. "For what?" I demanded. She hesitated. Then in an even smaller voice she said, "Ethan convinced me to invest in a real estate project in Florida." I felt sick. "Jesus Christ, Madison," I snapped. "You used protected estate funds on one of Ethan's shady business deals?" "I thought it was solid," she shot back. "The developer had a good track record." "Had?" She swallowed hard. "They filed for bankruptcy last month." I closed my eyes. There it was. The real reason she was desperate to sell the beach house. Not because she wanted the money, because she needed to cover up the money she lost. I pulled out my phone and dialed Thomas. "Liv, wait." Madison grabbed my wrist. "No," I said coldly. "You don't get to tell me to wait anymore." The final reveal. An hour later, Thomas and I were seated in the living room of Madison's house. She sat across from us, looking small for the first time in her life. Ethan was noticeably absent. "Where's your husband?" I asked. She flinched. "He left." "Convenient." Thomas tapped his pen against his legal pad. "We'll need to conduct a full audit of the estate's financials," he said. "Given the misappropriation of funds, Madison, you could face serious legal consequences." Her eyes widened in fear. "No, please, Liv." I held up a hand. "I should press charges," I said flatly. "I should let you sink for what you did." Her eyes welled with tears. "But I won't." Her head snapped up. "You what?" "You'll pay back what you took," I said, my voice firm. "Every penny, and you're going to help me restore the beach house. Instead of running from what you did, you're going to fix it." She wiped her eyes, nodding quickly. "I will. I swear, I will." "And Madison?" She looked up. "If you ever pull something like this again, if you ever put greed over family, I won't just take the estate from you." I leaned forward. "I'll make sure you never recover from it." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "Understood." I stood up, smoothing my blazer. Good. The start of redemption. 3 weeks later, Madison and I stood side by side at the beach house, staring at the overgrown gardens. She adjusted her gloves, glancing at me. "You know, Grandma always loved these roses." "Yeah," I said, crouching down beside her. "She did." She hesitated. "Liv?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for giving me a second chance." I looked at her, for the first time in years, and saw the sister I used to know. "Don't waste it." And for the first time, I believed she wouldn't. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden hues across the beach house's restored wraparound porch. The salty ocean breeze carried the distant sound of waves crashing onto the shore, a sound that had once been the backdrop of my childhood summers. But today, it was the sound of justice. I stood at the edge of the property, watching as two moving trucks pulled away from what had once been Madison and Ethan's house. Their belongings, what little they had left, had been packed and taken away under court order. I had given Madison a choice, and for once in her life, she had chosen right. Ethan, however, had not. He had fought to the very end, clawing, threatening, trying to manipulate the system, but today his luck had finally run out. I heard the sound of heels clicking against the wooden porch behind me. "It's done," Thomas said, stepping beside me, his voice calm but final. "The last of Ethan's assets have been frozen. The court officially ruled against his fraudulent investments. He's going to jail, Olivia." I let out a slow, steady breath. Good. Ethan's downfall. 2 weeks earlier, Thomas had called me with an urgent update. "Liv, you need to come to the office, now." I had rushed over, my pulse pounding, only to find him waiting with a thick file on his desk. "We found something," he said, flipping the folder open. Inside were bank records, shell company transfers, offshore accounts, all traced back to Ethan. "That son of a bitch," I muttered under my breath. Thomas nodded grimly. He wasn't just spending the estate's money. He was laundering it through fake real estate ventures. And it gets worse. He's been using Madison's name on legal documents to cover his tracks. I went cold. "That means if this goes to trial, Madison will go down with him." I closed my eyes for a brief second, feeling the weight of everything. Madison had done plenty of horrible things. She had betrayed me, stolen from me, lied to my face. But she wasn't evil. Ethan, however, he was rotten to the core. "What are our options?" I asked, already knowing I wasn't going to let my sister go down for this man. Thomas leaned forward. "We give Madison a deal. If she testifies against Ethan, she gets immunity. She gives up all claim to the estate, and in exchange, she walks away clean." I exhaled. "And if she refuses? Then she goes to prison alongside her husband." I called Madison that night. Her voice was tired when she answered. "Liv, I don't have the energy for another fight." "This isn't a fight," I cut in. "This is your last chance to save yourself." I explained everything. The fraud, the charges against Ethan, the trail of evidence leading back to her name. By the time I finished, she was dead silent. "You're serious?" she whispered. "I wouldn't be calling if I wasn't." A long pause. Then her voice broke. "I didn't know, Liv," she whispered. "I swear to God, I didn't know what he was doing." "Then prove it," I said. "Testify. Turn against him before he turns against you." Another silence. Then, finally, "Okay." The trial. The courtroom was packed the day Ethan finally faced justice. I sat in the front row, my hands clasped in my lap as the judge read the charges. "Ethan Walker, you are hereby charged with fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement in the amount of over $1.2 million. He stood at the defendant's table, his once confident smirk long gone. Madison sat on the witness stand, her voice clear and steady as she testified against him. "I was manipulated," she said. "I trusted my husband. I was blind to what he was doing. But I see it now, and I won't let him take anything else from me." Ethan shot her a look of pure venom, but it didn't matter anymore. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury returned a verdict in just 3 hours. Guilty. I felt the tension drain from my body as the judge handed down the sentence. Ethan was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. And just like that, the final piece of Grandma's plan fell into place. Madison's choice. 3 months later, Madison and I sat on the restored beach house porch, overlooking the ocean. The house, once on the brink of being lost forever, was alive again. The gardens had been revived, the old rooms freshly painted, the creaky floors repaired. But more than that, our family's legacy had been restored. Madison took a slow sip of her coffee, staring out at the water. "I still can't believe he's gone," she murmured. I watched her carefully. "How do you feel about that?" She sighed, setting her cup down. "Relieved." For the first time, she looked lighter, as if she had shed the years of lies and manipulation Ethan had wrapped around her. She turned to me. "You saved me, Liv." "You saved yourself," I corrected. She hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. "I have something for you," she said, sliding it across the table. I frowned, opening it. Inside were signed legal documents. "Madison," I breathed. She nodded. "I'm officially renouncing all claims to the estate. It's yours now, Liv. I don't deserve it." A lump formed in my throat. "What are you going to do?" I asked. She smiled softly. "I think I'm going to start over. Maybe take a break from society galas and yacht clubs. I found a job at a local garden center." I blinked. "You? Working?" She laughed, shaking her head. "Yeah, it turns out I actually like it. It's peaceful." I let out a breath, pride swelling in my chest. For the first time, Madison was making her own choices. For the first time, she wasn't being controlled by anyone else. She reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Liv, for not giving up on me." I squeezed back. "We're family," I said simply. Her eyes shone, and for the first time in years, we just sat together, watching the ocean, letting the past finally settle. The final sunset. That evening, I walked through the beach house one last time, running my fingers along the walls, breathing in the familiar scent of salt and aged wood. This house had been so close to being lost, but I had saved it. I had saved us. As the sun set over the water, I pulled out Grandma's letter one last time. "True wealth isn't measured in money, Olivia. It's measured in integrity, in love, and in the family you fight for. I knew you would make the right choices. I knew you would protect what matters." I smiled, slipping the letter back into my pocket. As I stepped onto the porch, Madison appeared beside me, gazing at the ocean. "You happy, Liv?" she asked. I looked at the house, at the horizon, at the future waiting ahead. "Yeah," I said softly. "I saved it." And finally, everything felt right.